But 14 years ago, the ghosts of the Second Reich began to stir, when the independent nation of Namibia emerged from 80 years of South African control. The descendants of the Herero who had survived the genocide began to revive their history. But what they discovered was that the story of the genocide had been completely wiped from official memory. 3 generations of white Namibians had been born into a nation where only their history was officially accepted. And many struggled to accept what the Herero said about the genocide. This was a country that seemed sure of its past. Even today, there is not a single official monument to those who died in the genocide in Namibia. Under the Germans, memorials and statues to the soldiers who took part in the colonial wars of the Second Reich had become national monuments. A cult of denial had taken hold. Histories had been written that were at odds with the actual documents in the National Archives and the memories of men like General von Trotta. But most controversially, the Germans had built a huge statue to celebrate their victory over the Herero, actually on the site of their biggest concentration camp.
You are reminded when you look at this thing as the most ugly representation of our history. It's not our horse. It's not our rider. Every time we look at that horse and the rider, it reminds us of our suffering and extermination by the Germans.
But the issue that the Herero have chosen to fight over is land. Most of the Herero and Nama land confiscated by the Kaiser in 1905 remains in the hands of 4,000 white commercial farmers. For most black Namibians, theirs is a country behind fences, off limits. The Herero who'd survived the war and the concentration camps were resettled in tribal reserves.
The land my family owned belongs now to a German farmer. It's no longer ours. Our people subsequently were pushed into the barren areas of the Kalahari, in the semi-desert area. That's why they farmed, and that's where I grew up. That part is painful. Until it is redressed, it will continue to be painful.
For 4 years, Herero leaders have been embroiled in a legal case against the German government for $2 billion in reparations to buy back their former land. In 2004, they marked the centenary of the war and invited Germany to send a representative. The Herero wanted Germany to admit responsibility and use the word genocide. German Development Minister Heidemarie Wiecksereck-Zuhl came to speak at a Herero on the actual site of the battle in Portugal.
Today I want to acknowledge the violence inflicted by the German colonist powers on your ancestors, particularly the Herero and the Nama. The atrocities, the murders, the crimes committed at that time are today termed genocide. And nowadays, General von Trotta would be prosecuted and convicted, and rightly so. And so, in the words of the Lord's Prayer that we share, I ask you to forgive us our trespasses and our guilt.
Germany's apology to the Herero and Nama people of Namibia is a brave and almost unique step, but it's also highly controversial. They have now used the word genocide to describe the actions of General von Trotta. But Trotta left the country in 1905, and it was his successors who ran the concentration camps for 3 years. Germany does not accept that what happened in those camps was genocide. This apology will not appease the Herero, solve the land issue, or end the reparations case.
Right now, we are not demanding a piece of Germany. We are demanding a piece of Namibia. It is our birthright. It is our right to demand it and to want it. We cannot bygones be bygones. While we are living like foreigners in our own country, and while we know that the Germans that caused 2 world wars, they are still having their land intact. Unless these issues are addressed and some form of redress is found, our children will continue to demand it for another 1,000 years.
60 years ago, Germany began a process of acceptance and apology for the Holocaust in the Second World War. But many in Germany also claimed that the terrible crimes committed in those years were purely a product of Nazism, an aberration in German history. As the Herero continue to fight for compensation, they are confronting Germany with a history that is completely at odds with that claim. 30 years before Hitler, in a long-forgotten African empire, Germany killed thousands in the concentration camps of the Kaiser's army. This fact is tearing into the heart of the central myth upon which post-war Germany was built. And the ghosts of the Second Reich, now awoken, will not go away.